This is my vintage audio setup, and I cannot show it all in the camera. I've got the camera back as far as it will go, and it's zoomed out as far as it will go. But on this shelf I have a vintage audio setup. Oh, this isn't part of it. There's some CDs over here, that's not part of it either. But let's take a little tour of this, shall we? It has two speakers. You can see the left one here. Next along we have the record player, which I have restored. I think it's from the early 80s. And this is the head shell and cartridge which I've put in it. I had to order them all the way from America because I couldn't find any places near here where I could get them. And I've got this retro looking record on there right now, the Northern Beat. Looks like quite an old record, but it is actually from 1990. But it has lots of early 60s songs on it, so they've made it look quite old, you know, with the black and white label. Next along we have two cassette decks. Up here is the an Iowa AD F410, and under it is the Denon DRM 600. If you remember, I made a control panel for it for adjusting the speed and things like that. Well, that's where I've put it, under there. You can see screwed onto this shelf. Next along we have my Akai 4000 DS Mark II reel-to-reel, which I have adjusted the bias on it so it now records perfectly. I found somewhere where I could download the service manual for it, and I adjusted the bias on it according to what it should be in the service manual, and it now sounds better than it's ever sounded before. I've made a slight little modification to it too. There's a switch at the back here which was for 50 or 60 hertz operation. Can't really see it too good because it is a bit blurry, but well, actually it's very blurry. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus a little better on it. That is now to turn the motor on and off, and I can show you that now. If I flip the switch, you can probably hear the motor going now. So when I want this silent but still on, I can have silent operation, and you'll see why I'd want to turn the motor off later on in this video. So I'll just switch that off now. And lastly, the pedoscott, which I use as the amplifier. I have also done the motor modification to this. Now you can see inside it, and this is the switch right here for turning the motor on and off when it's on. You see that? My motor's not usually that noisy, but it doesn't like working on its side. I've also replaced these the main filter capacitor with these two capacitors here. But other than that, it's running off all its original parts. The valves are still good, and the rest of the electronics are still good, and it sounds really nice. There is one small thing I did forget to tell you about, another minor modification I've done to it. This is where the AC cable used to go, but it is now round the back. You can see here, because there's a tiny little gap just big enough for a cable to go through. Well, this is how it's all wired up. First we have the record player, and then the preamp for it, That goes into one of my cassette decks here. And then that goes into the reel-to-reel, which goes into my other cassette deck, which goes into the Peter Scott reel-to-reel, and finally to the speakers. Under the record player there are two switches, because I've also installed light switches here, which turn off, on and off the two fluorescent lights which I have on the ceiling. You can see I've labelled one of them long light and one of them buzzy light, because one of them is long and the other one buzzes after it's been on for a while. So I'll turn the camera's light out so you'll be able to see it better. When I turn one of them off, you can see I also have light switches in this thing. Should come on in a minute. Well, there we are. Okay, now if you'll excuse the rather cruddy camera angle here, this is the only way I can get the camera back far enough, I will now present operation of this setup. Now, firstly, if I want to listen to this cassette deck here, the lower cassette deck, which is the Denon DRM 600, I just simply press play. And there it is. I've got one of the speakers right up close to the camera, so I hope it's picking up okay. If I want to listen to the reel-to-reel, the Akai 4000DS, I have to put this into record standby, and then it's ready to play. Now if I want to listen to this cassette deck, I have to put this into record standby, flip the monitor switch on this to source, and then it's ready to play. Okay, I do not know why it's playing so loud, but anyway, lastly, for the record player, like before, I have to put this into record standby. I also have to put this into record standby and have this one selected to source, and I can play the record. I will be spinning this one because none of the songs on this are by the original composers, so should be okay to show this on YouTube. Can I see what's your name? What's your game? What's your name? Really glad you asked me. I've been hoping that you would since yesterday. She told me that she'd see me every morning. I've really got to empty that bin. And that's how I use my vintage audio setup. Okay, stop recording. Well, that just about brings us to the end of this video now. So, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and until next time, goodbye.